Welcome. Today we're going to be grading each character from Unmatched. This doesn't mean that we're grading them from their tier list, their position on the tier list, but rather how well implemented the abilities and cards are to the actual character. So we're really grading them from a scale of A to D. A being great, B being pretty good, C being meh, and D being missed completely. You'll find that most of these are pretty high because I think they usually hit the mark on these, but there are some misses and some just okay. So let's get into those now. Now we're going to go into volume 1, starting off here with Medusa. I'm going to give her an A. The only bad thing I'd say about her is maybe the harpies aren't implemented quite well, but as far as Medusa goes, with her ability and pinging people in her zone, and also Gaze of Stone, the card, and it's a one-hit kill usually if you can get that off. If not, it's a huge amount of damage. It makes sense for the game. Next up, we're going to go to Arthur. I'm going to give Arthur an A as well. His sidekick Merlin. Also, I mean, the cards just fit perfectly for him. He's got that one big hit Excalibur that he can boost and use a strong attack with. Next up, Sinbad. I'm going to give Sinbad an A as well. As he goes on journeys, he gets stronger. Just makes sense. Maybe he's a little boring after you play him too many times, but he makes sense. And then the porter, carrying his goods and such, and drawing him cards makes sense as well. Alice, where she's kind of a different type of character because they took a character and kind of gave their own spin on it. So that's how I'm going to grade it by their spin. And a little bit in conjunction with the actual character of Alice. Now, the spin they put on her has made her a very combatant character, bigger with a sword, a big knife, big kitchen knife. And I think they did a pretty good job. Giving Jabberwock the sidekick, not that great. So I'm going to give her a B, pretty good, because even though you put your own spin on it, Jabberwock probably shouldn't have been the sidekick, to be honest, if we're being honest here. But she's a fun, great character. Next up, Bigfoot. I'm going to give him an A. If you had to give him a sidekick, it makes sense to give him the Jackalope, although also probably not that fitting, even though I'm giving him an A. He's borderline B, but we'll give him an A because his ability and him hiding and defending, running away, only getting the card draw when he's alone in his zone. So, A. Then Robin Hood, I'm going to give him a B because I think they implemented some of the things well, him running away, but I think they should lean way more into him stealing because he steals from the rich, gives to the poor. That's kind of his thing, so I would just give him that. Then we have Cobble and Fog here, starting off with Sherlock. I'm going to give him an A because, they implemented a lot of the schemes. He should be a very schemy character, and they implemented that well with Dr. Watson aiding. Next up, Dracula. I'm going to give him an A as well. If you've ever read the book, you can see a lot of correlation with the cards, with beast form, with drinking the blood, with the ability, working with the sisters, him not really caring too much about the sisters either, and being able to hurt them, and his health recovery. It just makes sense with his story and character. Jekyll and Hyde, I'm also giving an A as well. He can change back and forth between Jekyll and Hyde, can't use certain cards. That's actually very thematic for the story. And having the bigger hits when he's Hyde and taking damage makes sense, regardless of where you think he is on the tier list. Moving on to Invisible Man, I'm going to give him a C. Many people say he's very thematic, but I don't think he is. I think some of his cards are pretty thematic, but his main ability is going between fog tokens. That does not make sense to me. He's like teleporting around. He doesn't teleport, he turns invisible. I think they kind of ruined it for a character that could teleport. Anyway, so I'm going to give him a C, which is just a meh. Then Bruce Lee, I'm going to give him an A, and it's great. He can chain different actions and combos together. Makes sense. A lot of his card names make sense with the effects they have. Muldoon, I'm going to give him a B. He doesn't really lay a bunch of traps and stuff, but he does have the engine workers and a lot of the phrases that make sense with his character. Then the Raptors, I'm going to give them an A. Makes sense. A bunch of Raptors that circle you, they get extra attack. That makes sense. Then Sattler, I'm going to give her a C. But what can you really do with her? The insight tokens don't. It's a thing, but it doesn't really make too much sense if you really start thinking about it. Then the T-Rex, I'm going to give an A2. It makes sense. They're recklessly lunging around, kind of hurting themselves in the process, and they're very strong health pool. Makes sense. Little Red Riding Hood, I'm going to give a B. Now, they put their own twist on this character again. I just don't think lining up symbols in a basket really makes sense for card effects. But whatever, it could just be me. Then Beowulf, I'm going to give a B as well. I think he should be far more combatant. And a lot of times with Beowulf, you are pretty defensive in hiding. But I think he should be more confrontational. Houdini, I'm going to give an A to. Him being able to just appear somewhere else makes sense. A lot of his cards make sense with who he is as well. Having a fake card go out and then being able to retrieve it, sleight of hand, makes sense. Genie as well, I'm going to give an A to. Having the 3 wishes is extremely powerful, very thematic, but also comes at a price. Tomoe, I'm going to give an A to as well. If a character is retreating, it just makes sense that she gets a little bit of a ping damage on a retreating character, right? If you know her story. And then Oda, I'm going to give an A as well. Done pretty well, gave him the honor guards. Like a lot of the card effects and names of the cards fit with his character and who he was. Bloody Mary, I'm going to give an A as well. 3 actions. Obviously, it's very thematic for what she is. And then moving on to Sun Wukong, I'm going to give an A as well because regardless if he's overpowered, he is makes sense. The only problem I would say with him is the Phoenix form. I'm pretty sure there's no such thing as the Phoenix form in any of his stories. He doesn't turn into a Phoenix ever. But he can. There's a possibility of him being able to do that, right? Because he can change into anything. But it makes sense with his clones and them fighting and being able to use his cards. All that makes sense. Yanenga, I'm going to give a C. The ability to me doesn't make sense. Why can her archers take hits? I don't know. It's kind of just, a made up thing because we don't know too much about her story anyway. It's not like a super famous story. Achilles, I'm going to give an A. When Patroclus dies, Achilles gets stronger. That makes sense to me. Moving on to Daredevil and some of the Marvel sets here. Daredevil, I'm going to give an A. He's got a small deck, but he gets beat up. He gets back up again and fights. That makes sense. It's hard to exhaust him. Elektra, I'm going to give a B to. She dies, comes back, gets some abilities. Okay, that makes sense. Bullseye, I'm going to give an A to. Him being able to shoot anywhere and ignore zones up to 5 spaces away makes sense. Just with his ricocheting and shooting and who he is in the comics. Then we have Moon Knight. I'm going to give a B to. They could have done a little better with the abilities, but he is fun. Obviously, they made him fun. He's one of the funnest Marvel characters and bounces between the 3 different personalities. Then Luke Cage, A. I'm giving an A to because he is tough and his abilities just make sense with his powers. Ghost Rider, I'm going to give a C to, a big old meh, because what in the world does Hellfire tokens really have to do with anything? They just kind of threw that in there. I mean, that's my opinion. And then Black Panther, I'm going to give an A to. Stealing cards, putting them on, being able to boost, makes sense with his vibranium suit. Winter Soldier, I'm going to give a C to. Cancel, his ability of canceling doesn't really make sense to me. So I guess it's kind of a meh, And then Black Widow, I'm going to give it an A2 with the missions. Makes sense. She's going on missions, completing missions. You get stronger benefits from those. Squirrel Girl, I'm going to give it an A2. Being able to summon squirrels and overwhelm your opponent with squirrels and stronger attacks with squirrels just makes sense. Miss Marvel, again, with the reach of 2, makes sense, even ignoring the zones. So I'm just going to give her an A as well. Cloak and Dagger, I'm going to give a B2. The abilities don't make it that much sense, but they're pretty good, and a lot of their cards in synergy as a double hero makes sense. Doctor Strange, I'm going to give an A to. Him being able to put cards back in his deck and stuff and recursion stuff makes him seem like he's messing with time. And then Spider-Man, I'm going to give an A2 as well. Spider Sense makes sense to me. And a lot of his cards are very thematic. She-Hulk, I'll give an A2, borderline B. But throwing a card away to deal damage is pretty thematic. I'm going to go to the Buffy set and just go over it real quick. None of it's really thematic. I'm going to give Buffy a D. Doesn't make sense with the ability. Spike a D. Doesn't make sense with the ability. Angel a D. They just literally gave him some ability. And then C for Willow because it's just kind of a meh, right? Her ability when her sidekick and her take damage that she changes is just kind of a man. It might be a pretty good. I'm kind of borderline drawn on pretty good. She's definitely the most interesting ability in the game and cards that make sense with her. Moving on though to Tales to Amaze. We have Tesla. I'm going to give him a B. Again, another character they put a spin on. I think they did pretty good for what they implemented. And then Jill Trent, I'm going to give a B as well. Again, with the two gadgets, pretty good. Annie, I'm going to give a B as well. I guess it kind of makes sense where she gets a little stronger depending on her health, right? But I think what brings her to a B is her cards. And then we have Golden Bat, a B as well. So all of Tales to Amaze gets a B. Golden Bat, I mean, they just kind of gave him an ability, really. It doesn't make too much sense with this story. Then we're going to go to Philippa. I'm going to give her a D. I think they missed completely on Philippa. Her ability doesn't make sense with who she is as a character. But she is my favorite character to play in the Witcher sets. I love playing as her. Normally she's not like super aggressive in the stories. She's like patient and plays for like a long game, literally. And then we have Aridin. I'm going to put him at a C because he's usually stronger when there's the Wild Hunt, when he has the Red Riders in the story. But here they made him stronger when they're dead. It doesn't really make sense to me. Yennefer and Triss, I'm going to give a B to. Both their abilities make pretty good, perfect sense to me. Yennefer's boosting and Triss is dealing damage. I'm going to give them a B. I think there is room for improvement. Geralt, I think he's an A. I mean, being able to choose what weapons you have before a match seems pretty spot on to me, being prepared for the different monsters that he might have to face. Ciri, I'm going to give a C, only because the source is far more unpredictable and chaotic in the story than what they show in the cards and ability. Leshen, I'm going to give a B to. They did pretty good with him. I think they could have done something better, but obviously all of the Witcher sets are great and they work and they're balanced nicely and have a lot of good callbacks to the books as well. We're going to move on now to Shakespeare in the Slings and Arrows set. Shakespeare I give an A to, even though it's a character that is non-combatant, which I am not a fan of. Writing in the syllables from his pen being mightier than the sword. And they played into that pretty well, even though I'm not a fan. And then the Wayward Sisters, I'm going to give an A. Putting different ingredients into the brew makes sense. Having 3 different fighters makes sense. Queen Titania, I'm going to give her a C. And she's just kind of mad. They just kind of gave her this ability. I don't think it has much foundation. Hamlet, a C as well. The idea of to be and not to be makes sense, right? But in conjunction with his story, it's kind of meh to me. I might lean a little towards pretty good just because it's to be and to not to be in some of his cards, card names, but I'm going to give him a C. Then we're going to move on to Battle of Legends Volume 3. Pandora, I'm going to give an A2, opening up the box, not knowing what's going on. Pretty good. The only thing I might not be a fan of is the sidekicks. She could have been a solo fighter, but I don't know. Anyway, Loki, I'm going to give a C to. Wukong kind of already took the best fitting ability for Loki, so it's kind of hard to give him something after that because Loki's a cloner as well, or he clones himself and fights and tricks and stuff. But I don't see many tricks going on in his deck. Obviously, cards say trick and whatnot, or you can put cards in your opponent's hand and clog it up, but it's not too thematic. If you know Loki and what he is in Norse mythology, there are better things you could have done with his character, with his actual character, like who he is as a character in Norse mythology, to implement into his character in Unmatched. And then Chupacabra, I think I'm going to give it a C because I think they should drain cards or something, like, because that's what the Chupacabra does. Stealths around at night and drains the blood of victims or animals. And it's kind of like almost vampire-like. Then we have Blackbeard finally, and I'm going to give him an A. The whole doubloons and making your opponent pay and all that, and the card names, very, very thematic for what a pirate and Blackbeard should be. Anyway, those are my thoughts on all the characters that are out so far. If you disagree, go ahead and tell me in the comments. Obviously, we're going to disagree on some of these. Some of these you probably think are a miss completely. I thought were better, or you thought were great, and I thought were a miss. So just let me know in the comments what you think. A lot of these characters, again, if you look back at my list, most of them are A's. The majority of them are A's. So usually they're pretty on point with the characters and their abilities, and here's hoping that the rest of them will be as well. Just looking at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cards that we know and the abilities that we know so far, I think they're all just, some are great, but I'm going to put most of them in a pretty good instead of a great or a meh or a miss completely. That's what I would do for them because we do know their abilities and a few other cards. So that's what it seems. Early thoughts. So don't take that for concrete right now, but that could change for me. So I'd say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pretty good, but they usually do great with most of their fighters. So let me know in the comments below what you think.